guys? It is I, Otakushinsaku, back again for another video reaction. This one is a bit of a, just another what was it? Fuck. Why can't I say this guy's name? Tsiah 4 or 5, whatever, video. But this one is a bit of a request because there were some people in the comments of my previous Tsiah video who were like, you should do the one with, where he talks about the witches. So we're doing that. And I know a little bit about the witches because I've read all the visual novels, including this one. At least the one that, is famous with the witch. And what was it? It's either I think she's like the second magic user or whatever. She's the one that redshifts and time travels. Completely blanking on her name right now because I just woke up from a nap. So yeah. The reason and before you guys go, oh my god, you took a nap. It's like, yeah, well, nothing's open right now. Where I'm recording right now, the Pacific Northwest is getting a giant friggin' we're getting slammed by snow. So it's literally like 10 degrees Fahrenheit out right now. And we've already got like 5-6 inches of snow. So that's why I took a nap, because it's like I have nothing else to do today. Literally nothing else. Like, no shops are open. Like, friggin' McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and everything else is closed. So there's like literally nothing to do but, hunker down and, watch YouTube videos and take naps and stuff. So, did that. Either case, that's my personal life. We don't have to get in. We don't have to psychoanalyze me. Let's get into this.
Yo, so with Witch on the Holy Night back hitting the surface, it is time, it is absolutely necessary that we discuss where witches stand in the Type Moon domain. We got the patron request from Kiki. They say, I was wondering if you could go over witches, mainly what makes them so different from regular magi and why they're treated as rejects among the association. By the way, if you haven't already, make sure you guys sign up for the Patreon. You get access to early content and
and that is like the weird thing about witches and their association with the association, is due to the fact that witchcraft is insanely powerful. Again, witchcraft is so powerful that a single talented witch, can stand toe to toe with an actual magician. Someone who, again, casts their magic through the root. That's what it takes. Again, for those who don't know in Fate, the difference between magecraft and actual magic is magecraft is basically like the bastardized human equivalent of real magic. It is our attempt to do real magic, but it's not magic. Real magic is something that is performed through the root and has no qualifications. For example, magecraft has the rule of mystery on it. So, for example, if two people know how a magecraft works, it is literally half as effective because it works based on how mysterious something is. Whereas actual magic does not have that qualification because it's actual magic. So, for example, Zelrich could, if he so desired, and someone was talented enough to learn it, someone could learn not magecraft, but someone could learn Zelrich's magic, and so 2, 3, as many people as needed could know it, and it's still just as effective. And because of how Zelrich's magic technically works, where in every single multiverse there is a version of him, it's technically already in effect. You could theoretically say an infinite number of people know Zelrich's magic because there's an infinite number of Zelriches. And again, it's still just as effective because it's actual magic. It has no qualifiers. Actual magic has no qualifiers. So, the rule of mystery doesn't apply to actual magic and all that. And that's why the number of actual magics are numbered. That's why we have like the first magic, second magic, third magic, and all that stuff. And again, in the big climactic battle, is between a girl who unlocks who unlocks and basically becomes the user of, again, it's like the second magic or something like that, time travel. She becomes the magician for actual time travel. And even with that, even with the full brunt of using the actual magics of full-on time travel and everything that it can do, she's fighting a single witch, and the witch, during the majority of the battle, is like kicking her ass. And so again, witches are not weak. I don't want anyone thinking that they are. In the Nasuverse, witches are not weak. By far they are not. And yet the association, again, like he said, considers them rejects. It is the freakiest thing about the association's politics.
Priority on your request. So you may have heard about them only in name or just what you know about witches from their general myth, but they do hold a lot more weight than it might seem. But even with that in mind, what is exactly so terrifying about them that they should always be kept at bay? Well, for one, and we find out a lot more about this through materials than anything else, is that the first magic was created by a witch by the name of Yumina. From the materials, it says one of the oldest true magics, but the details about it are still unknown. What it involves appears to be common knowledge to some magi of the privileged rank. The user of the first has already passed away, but it is said that the person that will be their heir is still alive, but barely. Now, to this day, we're still learning about the qualities of the first magic, but we do know that it has some type of relation to ether lumps from Kara no Kyokai. It tells us ether is bound to become one of the four elements: earth, water, fire, and wind. But in the hands of a novice, it would fail to become the element and then materialize. This would be the ether lump. They're completely useless, and in some sense, creating an ether lump is like creating nothingness. It's like nothingness in material form. Looking at it from this perspective makes it sound like true magic. In fact, the ether lumps are originally the first magics, and then it cuts off. And I'm sure you can fill in the blank that it is the base of what the first magic is, or at least some type of element of it. Now, you may have not noticed, but we have already seen what ether lumps look like. We've seen this from the Einsburns. When they create their homunculi and the process actually failed, what they get is materialized nothing. They get an ether lump. So it has something to do in that vein of what being a witch is in their original myth, you know, the essence of making these things out of nothing or mixing different aspects together to come up with something else entirely through what would appear to us as dark ways. We already know that the true magics pretty much act as a cornerstone to the Nasuverse. So the fact that we find out Yumina has her hand in this would mean that she would be one of the deadliest mages by default, an actual true magician. We also find that the first magic isn't actually the first magic. So if you weren't already confused enough, that's a little more to be thrown in there to keep it interesting. The reason that the first magic gained its name has more so to do about the actual spell itself rather than the sequence that it came in. In fact, we already know that the third magic came before it. Nasu even goes into this. He says the third magic itself existed before the common era, but it disappeared alongside the end of the gods and can't be recreated. And 1,000 years later, the one that attempted to recreate it was Justice. The reason why the first is called the first is a very special reason due to its special nature. And that just goes back into what we already know with the ether lump situation. But the reason that I bring this up is because it directly ties to when it was actually made. We get this in the case files material, where it tells us on the eve of AD, the Anno Domini calendar was the birth of the wielder of the first magic. And if we cross that, we know that person to be Yumina. Now again, for the longest of time, and even now, a lot of people associated that Jesus Christ was directly connected to one of the true magics, and it only makes sense. And we do know that the Abrahamic God does exist in the Nossoverse, from situations like Solomon, when Solomon sent his ring into the future because God told him to. This is just an example of God directly intervening in the verse itself. So they definitely do exist. But with us knowing this, it also means that even if Jesus is a thing, his affiliation, at least with this magic, is a byproduct more so than it directly being him itself, since the eve of AD would actually be the last day before he was born. And 1 AD, at least on a figurative level, would be the year that recognizes his existence, his birth. In fact, you can look at the birth of Christ as the reason why Witch on the Holy Night has its name, because the literal birth of Yumina coincided with it. Then there's the fact that some magi are aware of Yumina and what that magic entails, or at least what stems from it, because Yumina, not only was she a mage, but her spells were an entire system that went on to be a part of the clock tower itself. In fact, the department of botany that teaches witchcraft is called Yumina. It's named after her. And for the people that are aware, they're at least the rank of cause at the clock tower. Just to give an idea of what level that is, Ritsuka, the main character of FGO, is also of that cause level. So think mid to upper mid tier. The thing is, we've never seen Ritsuka or somebody of his level mention anything of the sort, and the reason being is that it's inclusive. Yes, he does have the proper rank, but he isn't an older member. What they mean is the cause rank and higher from years ago, so it wouldn't be anybody that we're familiar with. It would be more so of the OGs of the clock tower and the people that helped start it. People like Zoken, for example. Although he did come later, he's probably one of the few that actually know. And considering that we know for a fact he studied in that department, I'm sure he does. But again, yes, it was Yumina that started that department, and also she did have some ties with Zelrich. They did know each other because Zelrich too is one of the founders of the association. It tells us, due to his promise with Yumina and the fact that he is old acquaintances with the headmaster, he shows up now and then and acts as an advisor for them. The very fact that he's holding his guns to this promise means that, for one, he's a man of his word, and two, Yumina was at least someone worthy of making a promise to. And then jumping back to the final part, that addressing that Yumina has already passed away, she is in fact the only definitive user of a magic that we know is dead for sure. Everybody else is kind of in the blue, but Yumina is gone, and we know that her heir is somewhere out here barely thriving, whoever that may be. On the flip side, we do know that the Meinsters, the family that Alice comes from, is a direct line from Yumina. And if we look at all the things that Alice is capable of, her power starts to make a lot of sense. She was granted 3 elite spells that were passed down from Yumina herself, along with many others, a good portion of them being over a millennium years old. She has an entire spell system based around Yumina's name that she uses. It's a lot like the system that you would see from the clock tower, but it highlights a completely different vein. Witches are just that flexible. When it comes to the elites, those 3 great spells being Deploy Kickshaws, Flat Snark, Wander Snatch, and Tam's Troll. We already went over Flat Snark. Just these 3 spells alone would be enough to make most mages tuck their tails and dip. It tells us that the difference between magecraft and magic makes no difference for her because it has that much gravity. She has Mystic Eyes. She has at least 30 spells because of this system, 20 that have been handed down and 10 that she's made on her own. She's shown the psychic ability of levitation, all sorts of things in her palette that can directly be sourced from her lineage to Yumina. The Meinsters, the bloodline that she comes from, are all pure-blooded witches, but Alice herself is in fact a mixed-blooded witch. Her father stayed unnamed, but it does tell us that her mother ended up marrying a human and having her, which makes her a very unique existence because this didn't take anything away from Alice, which normally shouldn't be the case. And we find that out through the events of LB6 with people like Beryl. We find out that he's a witch because, again, being a witch doesn't just pertain to being a male or a female, it's having that connection to Yumina in your background. So with that in mind, Beryl and Alice are actually related. And the thing about his backstory is that when he's having a conversation with his mother, who is also a witch, she's where he gets that witch part of his background from. She mentions that when a witch gets together with a human, it's all bad news. It dilutes the blood, it starts to rot their soul, and it takes away from everything that made them great in the first place. And she brings up how she's jealous of the direct Yumina line, people like Alice, for example, because their blood is able to withstand more than average. Although Beryl is from the witch category, he isn't a direct descendant of Yumina. And he's a great example of how far you can fall with this delusion, like his twisted love for Mash, where he believes that true love in his eyes can only be shown through mutilation and torture. He's done this to Mash when she was younger, and he killed his own mother at the end of that conversation. As apathetic as Alice may be, she never went that far. But as I've already mentioned in the story, she was ready and willing to kill both Alco and Sojiro because from her standpoint, Alco had neglected what she considered to be a pact, and they don't take things like that lightly. Few more things that we learn from Beryl's background is that reject aspect that he was asking about. His mother tells him that witches are essentially a counterpart to fairies, and if you've been through the Avalon chapter and you've seen all the fairies in it and what they're capable of and how important they are to the structure of the world, that just goes to show the magnitude that they are. They are in fact a supernatural race. That's what makes a witch in general, and that's why the clock tower looks down on them as rejects, because they aren't actually human. Because over the years, what became the modern day witch is someone trying to blend into society, like a Beryl Gut, for example, when in reality they would never fit in. And Beryl was one of those people that never could fit in because of those innate characteristics. This doesn't stop the clock tower from running their department, but they do look at modern day witches with contempt because they know where those spells truly came from. And just because you're using witchcraft doesn't make you an actual witch. There's plenty of witchcraft users that have no actual connection to Yumina at all, whether that be direct or an extension of the family. People like Ayaka or Haruri from Strange Fate or Zoken. I've already brought him up before. So just being a user, that separation to them is really apparent, which shouldn't come as a surprise to begin with. The association are the same.
Sorry about that, guys. If you heard that, that was my phone going off. I just put it on vibrate. So yeah, just want to let you know, I did not expect for people to start messaging me, so I was an idiot and didn't put it on vibrate to begin with, because I'm a fucking idiot.
People that don't see eye to eye with the church, but they will work with them if they have to. So a lot like the fairies in the way that they remain in the reverse side of the world, the real witches are better off keeping themselves out of society. That's when they're at their best. That's why people like Alice hold herself shut inside of her house for all of her life. And even still, without actual wisdom of being in battle, just the knowledge of her studies and the background she comes from, she's still capable of dropping spells that can level everything around her. Ash, or Morgan as we know her, is also a witchcraft user. Her water mirrors are spells that link directly back to them. And I've already brought up that the water mirror acts as a pseudo Avalon, where she can displace time and space itself just with her putting the spell into effect and throw the target elsewhere in time. Beryl himself has brought up the fact that the spell is so powerful that it might as well be true magic. And that's just one witchcraft spell. There's no telling how many many that we haven't seen. As far as the palette for witches, it is mostly the same to what you hear about in their actual myth: conjuring, shape-shifting, the dark arts. Beryl puts this on display in the Avalon chapter when we go after him. One of the things that his mother taught him is witchcraft that's tailored to assassination, torture, and murder. He would use the components as an ingredient in a cauldron like a witch, and then he would consume it and become that being. And we've seen him do this with another fairy by the name of Woodwolves, one of our greatest opponents in the Lost Belt, where we literally needed clairvoyance in order to beat him. And all Beryl had to do was hack this person up and consume him, and then he gained his abilities. He was able to shapeshift into Woodwolves himself. It was only fortunate for us that he was also cursed at the time, so he never realized his true potential in taking on that form. We also know from Nasu's journal that they actually threw out the rest of his character for time constraints. So Beryl was really supposed to be much stronger than he was. His character ended up getting condensed because we needed to get him out the way, which also makes a lot of sense when you notice how Beryl went down so fast, even though we've been chasing him down for so long. So when it comes to the versatility and how far these beings can go, it's nothing to scoff at. And one last thing, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with this already, is the world of notes. It's been heavily implied through the materials for the Extraverse that the Aylesbury Velesti, which was a ritual that the dead apostles took part in to bring back the Dark Six, was also a witchcraft spell. To put that into perspective, this same spell is what ended up drawing out all the mana in the planet and putting Earth in a post-apocalyptic state. It literally ruined the planet. Literally a witchcraft spell that caused the world of notes and brought in the types, all of that. And now
Oh shit. Oh shit. I don't think you guys understand why I'm doing this, because if you haven't read notes, oh shit, a witchcraft spell caused all of that? Oh, that is stupid powerful. That is just drinking Kool-Aid out of a clown shoe. Ridiculous amounts of power. What? I don't like where this is going.
Nasu tells us this also. What is the reason of the mana depletion in the world of Extra? It is the what if scenario caused by a certain ritual that occurred in the 1970s. This ritual is not expected to happen until the year of the 2000s. And of course, they don't mean it happened all at once. It's more so of a gradual effect of the world slowly dying out. So if Yumina wasn't enough to convince you, what Beryl did, even though it was short-lived, what Alice is capable of with little to no battle experience at all, Morgan, Zokin, this race can outright ruin the world given the right opportunity. It's actually insane. Yo.
Oh, okay, go back.
Yo.
Okay. Okay. Right then. Right then. I can see why people wanted me to watch this video. Damn. I'm gonna way to end this other than saying I'm gonna have to obviously think on this. And thanks for the follow. So yeah. With that, I am Otakushinsaku. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys join me for the next video reaction. Other than that, that's all I gotta say. Bye!